Hey folks, Quilly18 here, and welcome to another one of my prep videos for Total War Warhammer 2. I will be streaming the Lizardmen campaign over twitch.tv/Quill18, and in preparation for that, I want to go through and analyze some of the Lizardmen stuff and get you guys to add in as many commentaries beforehand so that we can sort of make a bit of a plan. My previous video, I looked into the campaign, the initial setup, the characters are going to be playing, that sort of thing, as well as the buildings and all that kind of stuff. But in this video, I want to take a closer look at the units that will comprise our army. And to do that, I'm going to go to the battle screen over here. I'm just going to go into custom battles, and with Lizardmen selected over here, we have the ability to design an army that we'd be taking into just a custom sort of 1v1 battle in this particular scenario. Or we could actually add more factions. But I'm not actually going to be fighting here. I'm just going to be taking this as an advantage or an opportunity to look at the actual units that we can take into that and try to consider how we might build an army in the game. Now, there might be... I've never gotten very far in these Total War campaigns. Mostly I've gone around and stomped with, one army and tried to make that one sort of as powerful and expensive as possible. But I suspect, first of all, as your territory expands, you're going to need more than one just to defend it all. But you might have some sort of specialization in how you set up your armies. There might be some that are better at sieging. There might be some that are better at fighting in open space. I'm not sure, and that's certainly an area of feedback that I would like. You might want armies that are made to fight in sort of static, fixed ranks and just slam against each other. You might want some that involve a lot more mobility or a lot more range, or I don't know. This is a good time for you guys to chime in here. Now, let's look at the various units by type and try to compare what we have there. And actually, what I want to do is I want to start by looking at the missile units, the ranged units over here, because we don't have a whole heck of a lot to choose from. If we go ahead and select, say, the skink cohorts over here, we've got our baseline unit that we know we're going to start with over here. They have javelins that they throw. So, do they have the ability? Oh, yeah, they do have the ability to mouse over and compare, which is excellent. So, here, we just have spears. We have 3 of them. The range is only 80, which is not a very long range. Mostly, I put these probably in just a second rank, immediately behind the melee, and they will mostly be throwing the missiles there. I don't know how line of sight issues work in the game. Maybe it's going to be easy to or important to pin enemies into melee and then actually try to flank slightly with the javelins and then hit them from the side. Maybe that becomes superior. I'm not sure. Now, we've got these skink skirmishers over here, and these are proper missile infantry. You can see 26 ammunition. Their range is actually less. They actually can't fire as far as the javelins. Now, from 80 to 70, I'm not sure how much of a difference that makes. Where's the cost? Okay, the cost here is the same. I'm assuming that this may not be the cost in-game, but I'm assuming that these two will have the same relative cost to each other, i.e. be the same cost here. We'll see. So the skirmishers actually have fewer hit points, less range, actually considerably reduced stats everywhere. But the big difference is 2 parts. First of all, they can fire while moving. So you're talking about hit and run tactics, strafe tactics. Also, if you turn on, is a button actually called skirmish, where you turn that on if anyone approaches you in melee, your troops will run away. They might be able to fire while they're backing away from their opposition, that sort of thing. Speed is slightly higher than the base skink unit here at 48. I don't know exactly how much that compares to these others. Well, the sources, quite a few of them are very, 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 very slow. I don't know, if I'm talking, if we're talking about a Skaven army, for example, I don't know how quick they are and how much they're going to compare. But we do have the ability to do sort of hit and runny kind of things. Now, whether or not that's how they'd get used, I don't know. I also don't know exactly how dangerous these poison attacks are. The poisonous attacks of this unit weaken the target's speed and damage while reducing its vigor. So it debuffs... Do we get more stats over here? There it is. 10 seconds worth of 20 to 25% penalty to their damage in a variety of different things. So their missile and melee damage, as well as their armor-piercing damage, which is all part of the same, as well as debuffing their speed. So it might indeed be possible to really kite effectively with these skirmishers. Now, that poison is also on these skink cohorts over here. Their poison attacks is only on the missile damage. And it looks like it's the same type of poison. So only the spears have the poison damage, but still throwing that debuff. So all of a sudden, we're talking about using these guys maybe less as, you know, for their normal sort of range damage and more for the debuff. The fact that they have a relatively short range, I'm pretty convinced is a shorter range than most ranged units, really means they're more of a melee support things. And so you're really trying to build a melee-centric unit, or a composition, and then your melee units become a little bit more competent because your opponents are constantly being poisoned. Now, we do have the Vanguard deployment on these units as well as on the Chameleon Skinks over here. The Chameleon Skinks, just to me, seem like a more extreme variant. Oh, they don't have poison. No, they do, though. They actually even have poison on their melee attacks, which the others do not. So poison's not listed as a characteristic here, but I think these are sort of just notes for you. It's not all-encompassing. Though they do have poison on their missile attacks, they also have poison on their melee attacks. Now, they have fewer hit points than the Skink Skirmishers. But other than that, they've got superior stats and everything. They are more expensive, and they do have the Chameleon trait. Can move hidden in any terrain, exceptionally hard to target with missile attacks, and they have the Vanguard deployment. I don't use a lot of Vanguard deployment because unless there's like very specific sort of layout of trees, I find it kind of hard to really take advantage of the Vanguard bonus. I'm quite keen on the Vanguard idea of like if you could do it on Cavalry, but this becomes amazing, especially since you can Chameleon anywhere, and presumably use this to maybe get behind battle lines, maybe get in close with other ranged people, or even go after, I don't know, some of the artillery, perhaps? I don't know. The aquatic's nice. Again, I don't think it gives you a bonus to fighting in the ocean. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. It doesn't specify. It mostly just hints that they don't get a penalty, but it's a little bit unclear. So, again, it doesn't look like we're set up to do huge damage with ranged units. Not with our regular missile infantry, but support and do sneaky things. And if someone's got specific advice about how we might use, say, the Chameleon Skinks, really interested in finding out about that. All right, let's scroll up and take a look at the actual infantry. The infantry here seems to be pretty straightforward and compatible with a lot of the other examples. And we do have the problem that quite a few of our sources here, which have pretty good stats, like if I click on, say, the Skink cohorts over here, just like really cheap baseline infantry, and compare it to the Saurus Warriors over here, right? The Saurus Warriors have more of everything except speed. The Saurus Warriors are slow. I don't think that's as much of a problem when you're talking about like frontline stuff. Obviously, they're not going to excel at setting up a flank, chasing down missile peoples, or, you know, jumping through a front line or anything like that. But they have positive stats anywhere. To me, the biggest difference is this primal instinct thing, which can cause them to break and, again, screw up your formations quite a bit. Now, the fact that these guys are slow can be offset a little bit by the poison over here. So it really feels like it's going to be quite important to have a good number of these guys in here. They're not very armored is the big thing with these Skink cohorts. That's going to be the biggest vulnerability. But they can stand just behind. These guys can take the initial brunt, while these guys stand just behind. They don't have a lot of ammo. Once they use it up, they can close in, and probably things have been whittled down by now. Now, what's predatory senses? Are natural hunters that can sense prey hiding nearby. So they will counter other camouflage units. They'll also probably have a better idea of catching people in the woods. I don't know how relevant this is, but I guess it's fine. I don't think it's going to affect our strategy overall. But it does mean if we end up fighting lizardmen at some point, we'll have to remember that predatory senses is a thing that we've got to be concerned about. But yeah, other than that, we've got, you know, what to me, fairly standard composition of non-spear guys, spear guys, shielded guys, either that are non-speared or spear with the shields, which just, you know, just better and better and better. I mean, if you could just deploy all temple guards, I guess that would be pretty awesome. It doesn't armored and shielded and really, really good stats, and you don't break. They're going to be expensive as hell. These guys all have 100 people per unit, except the Skink cohorts, which do have more. So yeah, I mean, if we can get temple guards, go for it. Literally, their only penalty compared to, say, the Saurus Warriors over here is that they do slightly less melee damage. But they're, they're more accurate, though. So there you go. So that's about it. So pretty straightforward, I think. I don't know how that compares to, say, a Dark Elf unit or a Skaven unit or something like that. I think there's just such a large range between the different factions that it's hard to generalize. I really don't know how the Dark Elves fight. I know the Skaven, you know, lots of relatively weak, squishy units, really low leadership. I suspect Fear is going to be effective against them as well. We'll see. All right, we do have cavalry units over here. And these are primarily going to be people riding on top of, like, raptor-like guys. So we've got 3 variants of these cold ones, and then we have the horned ones over here, but yeah, it still says cold one cavalry over here. So as far as I know, the base is basically the same. One of the biggest differences is that these guys are spear cavalry over here, but other than that, I believe they're all melee. Oh, interesting. Both the horned ones and the feral cold ones have the rampage over... Oh, no, that's... Sorry, they have a rampage. Gets hurt and enemies nearby might go on a rampage. And primal instincts, when under pressure, it kicks in, they may go on a rampage. So slightly different flavor text, but ultimately rampage is the thing it is. If we take a look, the horned ones are just better in every single way. Speed goes from 70 to 76. Oh, these 2 cold ones are a little slower. Oh, because I think these might not be ridden. I think these are just feral. They're just cold ones by themselves, and these ones are being ridden, so they're a little slower but more effective in every way, and a substantial boost in leadership. And they don't have the feral stuff over here. That explains the price difference, though. These guys are dirt cheap, dirt cheap. So I mean, use them as standard cavalry. Do what do you call, people refer to it, like anvil and hammer, you know, lock people down in melee with your normal infantry and then flank with the cavalry. I think that's going to be straightforward. I don't think there's any particular special things we need to be aware of. It is worth noting the cold one spear riders, they are the spear ones. They do have the anti-large as well, so that might be open up for some targeting of some stuff. Okay, then we get monsters and beasts. These Bastillodons, as far as I can tell, are not real dinosaurs, but they are like super like armored up, and they've got the spiked tail thing. Very sort of like super tanky. Again, they've got the 140 armor. I still don't know exactly how all the damage works. I know with the armor piercing, I mean, some people have a certain amount of damage that is armor piercing, so it'll always affect full damage. So this, for example, like, well, if we just take a look at, say, one of our normal infantry right over here. Let's say one of the mace ones. If we take a look at their weapon strength, 34 weapon damage, 18 of it is piercing. I think there might be like a die roll or something like that. Like, you don't just like ignore 140 points of damage all the time with this, of the normal ones. I think there's a chance for normal damage to get through, but not much. So unless, so stay away from spear people, because they tend to have more armor piercing. And also you are large, so you're really vulnerable to spears, but otherwise you do huge, massive amount of damage, and you also have huge amount of armor piercing yourself. So you're going to be a good thing to take out other big things, other big armored things. Speed's 40. It's actually not as bad. It's faster than the Sauruses, but not as fast as a cavalry. So there we've got it. Then we've got the Bastillodon that has got the Revivification Crystal. Now, I don't know what it does. We don't have specific stats for some... Oh, right over here. There we go. Never mind. Duration, 13 seconds. So it looks like you target a single ally. And then it resurrects dead combatants, presumably in a unit that might still be around, but has some dead ones. Replenishes hit points of combatants, heals injuries before resurrecting. So it is a big, stompy beast. How does it compare combat-wise to the base one? It actually is just a slight upgrade over the base one, and has the ability to res and heal. It also does not have the Rampage trait. So, to me, you really want to use the Bastillodon with the Revivification Crystal if you can. I suspect it's the same base unit, base building to produce them, but you probably need a secondary unit to do this in the campaign. We've got the Crocsgores over here, which are just like ogre-sized, like crocodile-type things. To me, I feel that they would most similarly compare to, say, your Saurus spears over here. They're similar. And that's about it. They are faster. They still have the primal instincts. They're more armored. Like, they're stronger, but still relatively similar. Only 16 in a group. I'm sure they count as large, and between the large and the armored, again, watch out for spears and that sort of thing. Feral Stegodon over here. Not as armored as the Bastillodon. Let's do it the other way around over here. So you can see we have less armor, but more hit points, and an increase to every other stat other than leadership. You're a little faster, you hit harder, you do have more defense overall, so you're a little harder to hit, and you still have lots of armor. Let's not mess around. To me, the Stegodon is a direct upgrade over the Bastillodon in terms of just raw hit points. And then we've got the Carnosaur over here. Still feral, big giant beasts, specifically anti-large as well. Good at taking out other big opponents. What else had the anti-large over here? Well, these guys here with the spears. I thought there was something else. I don't remember. Although these, the Bastillodon does have a lot of armor piercing. The Carnosaur still has a ridiculous 350 armor piercing damage. So they're going to be applying full damage to like everything really. And they've got the specifically anti-large bonus versus large over here. What do we have? Oh, frenzy ability, augment constant. Disable if leadership goes below 50%, but we get bonus damage if you frenzy. So yeah, there's extra traits over here. There's that cause terror, for example, cause fear. So cause terror, you both cause terror and fear. That's interesting. Siege attacker can attack city gates. So this is your battering ram right over here. Amazing. Built-in missile resistance, very cool. So then we've got the missile monsters and beasts over here. So we're looking at some of those. These are also where the pterodons come in. Pterodons are a flying missile cavalry, and this is something I have a big question about. Clearly, these things are very squishy. Very fast, speed 90. Very fast. But only 15 armor and really, really not a lot of hit points, okay? They're super duper squishy. Death from above. While airborne, this unit can use a special attack to damage enemies below. We've got drop rocks over here. Fire while moving. Vanguard deployment. Cause fear still, and do this. So you can, you know, strap some groups and fire on them. If I don't know, like, what flying does in terms of, can a ground unit hit a flying unit? This also's got poison, by the way. That I actually don't know. And that might be important to figure out before we start. If ground units can actually melee these guys as they come near. But with the speed and the fire while moving, now this probably needs a lot of micromanagement, although maybe put on skirmish mode, again, maybe it's going to be fine. They're relatively cheap, which is good, but I'm worried that they're going to be too vulnerable. Do they need special type of army composition? You know, I like to just be like, listen, I like to play sort of the dwarfy way. Strong front line, some siege behind it, go. How bad is that? Now, I also don't know how the speed affects overland movement, if that's consistent. I suspect that the slowest unit in the group determines overland movement, but maybe it doesn't. Can you make a really fast campaign map moving unit with things with high speed, and is that a viable sort of army to use in general? I don't know. Can this attack people on the walls? Well, probably, although walled city attacks, they tend to have those towers and everything like that that'll probably obliterate Pterodon riders. Not to mention cities tend to be defended with a lot of ranged attackers. So I feel like the Pterodon riders would actually be really bad in an army that's looking to siege a city, but maybe there's something I'm missing. We've got the upgraded Pterodon riders over here. They've got the Fire Leech bolas. They have a little less ammunition and a little less range, but they do more damage. And it's flaming attacks as well. So that's cool. Then we've got the Bastillodon with the giant laser beam of doom over here. You can see their missile damage, 403. What? Huge amount of armor piercing as well. Blinds people, but it's got a huge reload time. It's 14.4 seconds. It fires very, 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 very slowly. Damage value shown is damage over 10 seconds, so it does like laser beam over a period of time. Presumably that reload time starts as soon as it starts firing, as opposed to at the end of 10 seconds, because otherwise it'd be a 24-second cycle. It definitely does not feel very fast, but it is very potent. Then we got the Stegodon, which I believe are being ridden by skinks as well. It just says the crew. But yeah, it's got a combination of weapons, because it's got the bolts. It doesn't talk about the range, the normal range attacker, which the ancient Stegodon does. 22 ammunition. Poisoned. Again, caused by missile attack, split between base and armor piercing. I feel like some of these describe having a couple different things. Got causes fear, causes terror, siege attacker, can attack city gates. I think most of the dinosaurs can do that. So again, you can use this as a batter ram in addition to the ranged element of it. And then the Ancient Stegodon over here, even bigger. I mean, huge base cost. Fire while moving. This is the one I think it describes in the other thing as like the skinks are on the back, firing with arrows as well as having the siege weapons. I don't know how that's split up necessarily over here. It's got the fire while moving. Everything else is pretty much the same. So yeah. So if you've got, you know, of course we got 20 units, one of which has got to be the Lord. We're going to be starting off with Lord Mazdamundi in our normal campaign. We can potentially recruit some more Lords. We can recruit some heroes as well, which has got some interesting extra abilities that can be thrown in. One of these in the campaign, I don't know if it's one of these or it's an extra one, actually just gives you, I think, more passive XP for your whole unit per turn, which to me is pretty strong. The Lizardmen actually seem to have a lot of mechanics for generating more XP per turn for free, as well as generating higher level, like higher XP units when you spawn them. So your troops tend to be extremely high ranked. And I think it probably has to do with a lot of the sort of martial culture of the Lizardmen, as well as they're very lawful and like orderly aligned. Like, it's just, these are the way things are, it's just organized this way, yada 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 yada. And I suspect it's related to that kind of idea. Higher, as far as I know, the higher ranks gives you an increase to like most stats, including a big leadership boost. So in my little test games, I don't know if I ever once saw one of my Lizardmen units break, for example. Doesn't mean I didn't take, you know, huge damage and lots of things and, you know, do battles poorly and whatever. But seeing a Lizardman unit break is not something I'm used to seeing. The Skinks do have lower leadership at 55. If we just take a quick little glance at the Skaven, because Total Biscuit has been streaming the Skaven, so you've seen all the stats at this point. And actually, I think most of these stats have been revealed. But, like, leadership 35 as opposed to 55. You have to get to these, like, Plague Monks and Death Runners before you get more leadership that really stands out. Quite expensive over here. Missile Infantry, same sort of situation. You've got to go pretty high up in the value before you can beat that leadership of 55 of our Skinks. Let alone, so that was our Skink Infantry. If we actually go to the Saurus Warriors, you're talking about 75 leadership in our normal infantry. That's why, like, they will hold the line until they're dead, basically. Doubly so when they're within range of one of your leaders with the extra leadership aura. And you know what? That's making me think. I was talking about in the previous video that one of the things I like to level up on my Lord is the +5 leadership aura. And it's, of course, also required to unlock the stats to, like, make all your infantry units more powerful and so on and so forth, which are all very, very, very good because it's a lot of extra numbers over there. But I have to say, I feel like that extra, like, your Lord already has a base built-in leadership aura. That extra +5 points, in terms of a percentage of leadership change, not really all that notable. And maybe we really will focus hardcore on the magic right from the start instead of going down there. It means we're not taking the things to buffer individual units, but that might be okay. And really let us focus on as much magic as possible. So, yeah. Really, really sturdy units, I have to say. You know, 70, how are the monsters? Some of them are down at 60 over here, which is a little bit lower. Now, I don't know what causes the specific leadership break. I think it's when you're being hit. Presumably, it's affected by how much damage you're actually taking, and this is going to be potentially mitigated by armor. But it might be extra important to make sure the leader is not too far away from these units, especially since, you know, if one of these big units gets under heavy fire from someone, we'll be able to buff it with a defensive buff. We'll be able to throw heals on it, that sort of thing, and maybe that'll make a big difference. So, if you've got sort of a dream team composition, and if there are concepts for, like, an army that's designed to take a city versus a army that's maybe good at defending against people who are coming in and doing the, what is it called? Raiding stance? You know, when they come in and just steal your gold and things like that. If there is something you can do to get even more overland speed by designing your army in a certain way, that might be very helpful. If there's something that's, like, really ideal for defending a city, for example, give me your ideas in the comments, and do join us on Twitch. It'll be twitch.tv/Quill18. It's going to be starting, this live stream campaign of the Lizardmen battle is going to be starting on Friday, September 22nd. Time to be announced. It'll either be like noon or maybe 2 p.m. Eastern time, so stay tuned for that. There will be an announcement on YouTube, and of course, do make sure to go to twitch.tv/Quill18, hit that follow button there, so that you should get an email when we start, so you don't miss anything. See you then, folks. Bye-bye.